Okay, dear students, this is the first one class in early medieval age. But my students, as I have told you earlier, whether you are going to count it in ancient history or early medieval, there is the very thin line of demarcation which we can draw between ancient history and early medieval. I have told you, in fact, up to Gupta and post-Gupta period, the trends are continuing and the more or less same trends are visible, although in more pronounced manner during early medieval age. So it is very difficult to separate early medieval age from ancient, you can say ancient period, or the late ancient period, Gupta period onwards. My students, actually here I have to discuss about one aspect, then I have to move to this topic. My aspect is India's cultural relations. India's cultural relations with outside world, cultural relations with outside world during ancient period. Here you find here the term India's cultural relations with outside world during ancient period. Actually here I have to inform you, or whenever you have to write something over this fact, you will mention one thing. If you have to write here, you have to make an introduction in the manner, even during ancient period, India did not remain insular. Insular to the development of outside world. India didn't remain to be insular to the developments of outside world. India did not remain to be insular. But although much research work has been done on India's economic relations with outside world, outside world but outside world, but very few works, have been done, have been done on India's cultural relations, on India's cultural relations. On India's cultural relations. So my students, we have to talk about India's here. You will come to know that actually enough works have been done on the India's economic relations with the outside world, but very few works have been done on India's cultural relations with the outside world. It is a common introduction for you. Suppose if you have to write something on India's cultural relations with outside world, you can very well start with the sentence I have just given to you. India from the very ancient period, even during ancient period, India didn't remain to be insular from the developments of outside world. And although a lot of works have been done on the economic relations of India with outside world, but very few works have been done on India's cultural relations with the outside world. So this phenomenon should be kept in view. So my friends, in this way you have to go further. So this one point is, and this is normal the introduction. After that, what you are supposed to done the work. India's relations with Mediterranean region. Mediterranean region means with Roman Empire. So here you can very well mention about you can say what, you can just mention about Gandhara art, and even certain developments in the field of, you can say, the astronomy, etc. So you will just talk about the relations between India and Roman Empire in this regard. And then second one aspect is relations with Central Asian region, with manifestation of cultural syncretism. Cultural syncretism on Silk Route. My student, whenever I have taught you post-Maurya period, there I have made this point clear. Actually, there was the development of a Silk Route. And this Silk Route was the meeting points of different cultures at that time. And this Silk Route started from China, and while crossing the central India, it moved towards Roman Empire. So this Silk Route was moving through the region of Bactria, etc., Yarkand, Khotan. All the regions were being crossed. So actually, under Kushanas, a part of Silk Route was under the control of, under Kushanas, a part of Silk Route was under the control of Indian Empire. So definitely you can say that there was the cultural exchange between India and Central Asian region. You are informed here that in 1927, I have discussed this aspect whenever I have taught you post-Maurya period. During 1927, it was Aurel Stein. Aurel Stein, you can say he was a British archaeologist who made excavation at Silk Route, and then he tried to find out and tried to trace there some relics of Indian culture. And I have informed you, in fact, this region from Silk Route to China, it was an Indian scholar, you have heard Kumar Ji, who has made a visit. Even Dharm Kirti was active, Dharm Kashyapa was active. I have just talked about. You can say they just performed the missionary activities at that time and tried to spread Indian ideology. And you are also informed about the fact that even some trace of Charak Sangita could have been, you can say, manifested at Silk Route. And what you know as the first Sanskrit play by Ashu Ghosha, you have heard the name, Shariputra Prakarana. So fragments of the Shariputra Prakarana have been unearthed from the region of Silk Route. So in this way you can say that there was, and India was having the relations with the Central Asia, China, there was the influence of Indian, art also in the region. And it was you can say syncretism, some sort of mixing of different cultures at this point. So there you can say India was having the deep relations with the region of Central Asia. And particularly during Gupta period onwards, you will find the deep relationship of India. Another you can say India's relations with the region of Southeast Asia. The region of Southeast Asia. India relations with the region of Southeast Asia. So my friends, here you are very well aware of the fact that India relations with the Southeast Asia, you can just try to find out. So that is important for you. And here you are informed that in fact India was having the Indian culture was having the greater root in Southeast Asia. Actually, when India was having the deep trade relations with the region of Southeast Asia, and it was during this period there was the exchange of ideas as well. Exchange of ideas between the two. There was the growing influence of Brahmanism and Buddhism both on the region of Southeast Asia. But this Brahmanism and Buddhism mixed with the local culture of Southeast Asia. Here you can say that some ultra-nationalist historians even try to prove. Here I have to discuss one aspect with you. Whenever you will observe the region of Southeast Asia, so some ultra-nationalist scholars were enthusiastically tried to prove that it was the greater India. Greater India, it was the extension of India in the region of Southeast Asia. And some of them were even tried to state that and tried to assert that. Some of them just tried to assert that. In fact, here you come to know they just try to assert that as India was colonized by Western powers presently, but there was a time India has developed its own colonies in the form of Southeast Asia. You can say this was basically a distorted interpretation of history. India was having the deep cultural relations with Southeast Asia, but it is not justified to characterize Southeast Asian region as Indian colony in the same manner as was done by Western powers to Indian colony. So definitely you can say initially even the Southeast Asian regions did not prefer the deep relationship with India due to this sort of mentality, But the truth is that there was the give and take. Suppose you will Ramayana traveled to Southeast Asia. But there they developed although the characters are same, but a story is slightly altered, and there is the particularly alteration in a story, and this story could have suited to the condition of Southeast Asia. So it was the local version of Ramayana, you can say. You find, although they were influenced, can you imagine that the capital of Thailand was Ayutthaya, and Ayutthaya was named on Ayodhya. Likewise, Champa and many other countries you will find. The largest Buddhist temple was not, you can say, built in India. Rather, the largest Buddhist temple was built in Indonesia at a place Borobudur, you can say. You will find a very grand and well-furnished Vishnu temple built at Angkor Wat. So that reflects the relationship between the India and the region of Southeast Asia. The students from Southeast Asia were just coming to join Nalanda University. The Indians in groups were just moving to Southeast Asia for even stake their career. Can you imagine that in Odisha there was a festival was being celebrated in Odisha that was called Bali Yatra. Means it was on the same fateful day, a group of Indians or a group of natives of Odisha were moving towards the region of Southeast Asia in order to stake their future and to start or restart their career. So this was in fact depth of the relationship between the region of Southeast Asia and India at that time. But it was not a one-way traffic. Suppose you can say betels or betel nuts you might have heard about. Betel nuts, supari, what you call. So that has been appropriated from there. Even there you will find the local versions of Ramayana. Even Prime Minister Modi visited the place, so he was offered and he was gifted a Ramayana in one of the states, you can say. So definitely it was the two-way traffic, and they have just developed the local form of, or you can say Indian culture was redefined in the local condition, and even Indians learned something from the region of Southeast Asia. So there was the free give and take. So my students, here my point is, India didn't remain to be insular from outside world, and right from the Mediterranean region up to the region of Southeast Asia, India could develop the deep cultural relations with the different regions at the different turn of time. So my students, this is the basic essence of the topic. Now you can say, I think in post-Gupta literature there is not any difficult. I will just make this point clear, because in post-Gupta literature, Sanskrit literature, I have already mentioned in context of Harsa, who were the quoted scholars of Harsa, and even Harsa is given the credit to have composed the three important masterpieces, Priyadarshika, Nagananda and Ratnavali, although slightly disputed. And then his quote scholar, his name was Van Bhatt. He has composed three important texts like Harshcharita, Kadambari and Chandi Shatak. There was another scholar, Mayur, also. And then possibly he composed the text Surya Shatak. And then Yashovarmana. Yashovarmana was the king, and he was ruling in Gaur region of Bengal after Harsa. But he was also supposed to be, you can say, very popular ruler in this region. So his court was decorated by two scholars. One was Bhavbhuti. Bhavbhuti was the author of Malti Madhava, the name of the text. Another is, Bhavbhuti it was one of the scholars who decorated his court, and second one scholar is Vakpati Munja. So Vakpati Munja has composed a famous text. The name was Gaurvaho. Actually, Gaurvaho, in fact, he conquered the region of Kannauj. So it was in commemoration of his victory. He composed the famous text Gaurvaho. So otherwise, there's so many Sanskrit texts. In one single one Prakrit text is Param Charyu. Param Charyu is the Prakrit text. But my student, what do you know? This Prakrit text was the local version or Prakrit version of Ramayana. Sometime in prelims that can be important for you. Param Charyu, that is some text of Ramayana, and it was written in Prakrit. And in South India, I have already mentioned about some Pallava scholars and their compositions like Dandin, Dashkumar Charitam, Bharavi, Kiratarjuniya. You are well familiar with all these things, okay? So my students here, and then you have to move further. Southeast Asia. I have now come to the topic. Now we have to cover the topic early medieval age. And in early medieval age, first of all, I'm just going to discuss this aspect with you. And early medieval age, assessment of early medieval age. Firstly, my students, I have to deal with the syllabus. Or I am just creating my own syllabus, no problem. Early medieval age. Time period. 715 to 1200. Okay. And then you have to observe first North India. North India. And then here you have to observe South India. South India. North India and South India. Okay. अब in North India, political, Pala and Pratihara dynasty. Pala and Pratihara dynasty. Political, administrative, administrative, in administrative you can say feudal state, versus integrative state system. My students, you should not get confused with the term like feudal state versus integrative state system. I will just make you clear about feudalism and integrative state system. You will be crystal clear, no confusion at all. State versus integrative state system. Integrative state. Okay. Here in South India, Rashtrakutas and Cholas, political. In political, you have to Rashtrakutas and Cholas. Rashtrakutas and Cholas, the two factors we are just discussing about. Okay. Rashtrakutas and Cholas. Okay. Administrative you find here South India. Then economic in North India. Left side North India, right side South India. Economic. The condition of trade and money economy. The condition of trade and money economy. My students, here I will discuss a debate with you people. Discuss a debate with you people in that sense. There is a debate R.S. Sharma versus B.D. Chattopadhyaya. R.S. Sharma believes that this period is marked mainly by the decline of trade and commerce, money economy and urbanization. B.D. Chattopadhyaya and Ranveer Chakravarti have countered this theory. So then, what is the widely accepted view between the two scholars? So I have discussed this aspect here in the economic factor. And here in South India, right, South India, I have discussed about the two dynasties, Rashtrakutas and Cholas. And in administration, I have to discuss two aspects here. I have to discuss segmental state system, Can you find the term segmental state system? And apart from segmental state system, we have to discuss one aspect with you. And this aspect is what? That is local self-government. Local self-government. Local self-government. And then about the economy, you can say as the economy, the role of Nadu, Nagaram and temple in the economy of that time. So in the South India, a role of Nadu, Nagaram and temple at that time. Here you can condition of trade and money economy, the economic, and in social. In the social, whatever title I have to give, because here you know whatever social changes you have underlined up to Gupta period and later Gupta period, you can underline the further changes in early medieval age in North India. Then in North India, you are just observing here religion, and in religion you have to make a separate study of religion, and here you have to make a separate study of Tantricism. Here you find the role of Tantricism. Religion, what is the implication of religion, you can say? That is, Tantricism. That is known as Tantricism. And after Tantricism, then what? Then literature. In literature, Sanskrit and Prakrit, Sanskrit, Prakrit and Hindi literature, you can say, Hindi. And then architecture, you can say, Nagra style of architecture. Just leaving it here. In society under Chola, we have to observe. After society, then you have to observe your religion. Bhaktism, then Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, and Madhvacharya, mentioned in your syllabus. Madhvacharya. Religion, Bhaktism, Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya. Then literature. Sanskrit, Tamil and Kannada. Here Nagra style of architecture you find here. Nagra style of architecture. Then sculpture. Then you can say paintings. Here you can find here the paintings. Do you know that is miniature painting, Chaur Panchasika style. Okay. So this is about the art in North India. In South, after literature, you can see Vesar style and Dravir and Dravira style of architecture, then sculpture, and then paintings. So that is your syllabus in Northern and Southern India and early medieval age. Now better to come to your syllabus now. Firstly, just observe here. Here I have to raise certain historiographical issues first. Here, early medieval India, 750 CE to 1200 CE. Okay. Assessment of early medieval period. Assessment. Traditionally, this period has been considered as a period of decline in administrative centralization and rise of regional polities. Even earlier, my students, I have discussed one aspect with you. Okay, there is one problem of assessment. Assessment is that in traditional historiography, a centralized empire was always supposed to be progressive. And what you know as decentralization, so that is supposed to be the mark of decline earlier. But with growing democratization and with, you can say, with the emergence of a new perception, now it is largely believed, it was not the case. It was largely believed, or it is largely believed now, India or a country or a empire, a big empire, can never do justice to the regional autonomy. Normally the regional art, regional culture, regional, literature, so all are getting suppressed under an empire. But whenever there is the multiplicity of states and there is the decline of centralization, so that is not decline, decentralization. And decentralization always helps a region to grow further, culturally and even economically. So this is the common perception. So now early medieval age was supposed to be the age of decline earlier. But now such perception has changed. So that's why you find here the term. You can just go through the PDF form of this PPT. Traditionally, this period has been considered as a period of decline in administrative centralization and rise of regional polities. Now, the rise of regional polities were earlier, you can say, treated as a sign of decline or mark of decline. The political system of this period has been characterized as fragmented and regional, and on this basis, this period has been described as a dark age. Earlier, it was characterized as a dark age. But the notion of dark age has been discarded on the basis of latest research. Instead, a new proposition is being made that during this period, the importance of regions and regional politics increased within the overall framework of a decentralized political system. State formation took place in new areas and regional art and culture was stimulated. Now it is not treated, no more it is treated as the sign of decline, but rather it was supposed to it is supposed to have heralded a new age. There is the rise of regional polities and there is better opportunity for the evolution of the local art, local culture, local literature, etc. Enumerate the ingredients of the transient nature of early medieval period. Once there was a question in UPSC, enumerate the ingredients of the transient nature of early medieval period, possibly in 2016, etc. or 15. Here, transient, what are the transient nature? Smaller states were formed in place of large empires and rise of a multi-state system. That is the one feature. Transient polity, decline in administrative centralization and increased involvement of local elements in administration. Now, development of regional languages and regional sentiment. Development of regional languages and regional sentiment. And point 4, art, culture was promoted at local level. And fifth one, expansion of agrarian economy in new areas through the medium of, or through the phenomena of, or the medium of land grants and peasantization of tribal growths. Even earlier I have discussed this aspect, what you know as peasantization of tribal growths. Once you have to go through the syllabus. One topic is Arab invasion and conquest of Sindh, impact and significance by my students, but this subtopic I am consciously dropping here because whenever I will deal with the later medieval age and start from Delhi Sultanate, so firstly we have to give focus over the rise of Islam in Arabian region and expansion of Islam in West Asia and Northern Africa. Then how did Islam travel towards India? So it was in this context we have to mention about firstly Arabian conquest and its significance. Then I have to deal with who were Turks and how were the Turks different from Arabian people, and why the Arab invaders got simply limited success in India and they have to remain confined up to the region of Sindh alone. But when there was the rise of the Turkish power in Central Asian Turks who joined, they were converted to Islam and they became they developed the jail of a new convert. And then how did the Turks become the independent ruler of Ghazni in course of time under Abbasid Caliph? And then one of the, you can say, Turkish governor of Ghazni, Subuktagin's son, Mahmud Ghazni, and he became later the virtually independent ruler of Ghazni. And then he carried continuous invasions on India. And what was the significance and what was the impact of or repercussion of the Turkish invasions of North India? And then we have to deal with Ghori. How did Muhammad Ghori lay foundation of Turkish rule or in northern India? So my point is that this Arab invasion should not be treated in separation with the overall expansion of Islamic power in India. So that's why I have consciously placed this topic not here but in the subsequent topic I have linked it. Now point 2, tripartite struggle between Palaj, Pratiharaj and Rashtrakutaj and its impact. Actually Palaj and Pratiharaj, they are the two dynasties and they belong to northern India. Rashtrakutaj, you can say, emerged to be a power in Maharashtra region and it's in some part of the northern Karnataka, you can say. But matter of surprise is that so far no South Indian king ever ventured to move towards North India to, you can say, fulfill his political ambition. But Rashtrakutaj were the very unique kings. When Palaj and Pratiharaj were fighting for the possession of Kannauj, which was at that time the symbol of power in northern India, and right from the time of Harsha, this Mahoday Sri was always, Mahoday Sri emerged to be a capital, or you can say the political Makkah of any imperialistic power. But it was Rashtrakutaj who also joined this struggle conflict with Palaj and Pratiharaj, and he gave a new angle to this conflict, and it is known as tripartite conflict. So in this way I will deal with this topic. Debate on the politico-administrative structure of North India, feudalism versus integrated state system. That is the quite important. What was the nature of state during early medieval age? So here you will be familiar with three different theories which I have to discuss with you. One theory of the theory of feudalism, another is integrative state system, and next another is segmented state system in context of South India. So emergence of Rajputs, political, administrative and social structure of the Rajput period, causes behind Rajput defeat in face of Turkish invasion. My students, once again I will avoid this part. The causes behind the Rajput defeat in face of Turkish invasion. I will just deal with this part of the topic during the latter phase, or I will link it to the subsequent phase. So that's why I'll discuss this aspect later. Then finally 5, debates on agrarian structure, trade and commerce and urbanization during the early medieval period. Debates on agrarian structure, trade and commerce and urbanization during early medieval period. So this is the aspect in North India. Exclusively I will discuss this debate. A religion in the early medieval period, Nagar school of architecture, Nagra school of architecture, sculpture and paintings, culture, Apabhransa and regional literature. South India, historical role of Rashtrakutaj and their cultural contributions. Then Chola Empire, Chola administration, economy, society and culture. Third, Vesra and Dravida schools of architecture, growth of Kannada and Tamil literature, role of temples in the economy of South India and contribution of Bhakti movement in South India. I have to deal with all these topics. Now my students, just come to this point and try to understand this. Debates on the politico-administrative structure during early medieval period in the Indian context. Actually, there is certain debatable issue which I need to discuss with you first. that there are two traditional opinions on the politico-administrative structure of the period. One opinion talks about changelessness, and on the contrary, the other one talks about changes in politico-administrative structure. My students, actually this is the basic matter of historiography. Here the point has been highlighted. In fact, while making a study of early medieval age, normally you find two contrasting or two contradictory views with reference to its evaluation. One view believes in the theory of changelessness, which I will just clarify it later. Changelessness, Karl Marx, Asiatic mode of production. And another view believes in the theory of change. But now one view believes that there was changelessness, no any major change and no any specific change in early medieval age. So it was just the extension of ancient period. But according to the second one view, change is remarkable and changes are clearly visible. So idea of changelessness, of that which believes in the theory of changelessness, what is the specific perception of this view? So please just go through it. It is based on the theory of Asiatic mode of production originally given by Karl Marx. It focuses on Oriental despotism and tries to prove that Indian society has always been changeless. However, this idea has been convincingly rejected. My students, this is the quite interesting thing I have to discuss with you people. In fact, it is based on the theory of Asiatic mode of production. What is the Asiatic mode of production of Karl Marx? Previously I have discussed this topic with you people. Possibly are you recalling this topic or not? I don't know. In historiography I have given, and possibly not. I am once again repeating. Karl Marx. I will discuss on Karl Marx, you can say widely and comprehensively while teaching you the world history. Here I cannot give you the comprehensive picture because it is the part of European history. But at least I am giving the hint that in fact whole thesis of Karl Marx is based on the theory of class struggle or class conflict. And he ordained European society underwent, you can say, continuous changes due to this theory of class conflict. Earlier there was some sort of primary communism, then emerged slavery system, then appeared feudalism. After, as the result of class conflict, the feudal system just broke down, so emerged capitalist system, and the next step would be socialism. But in case of India, although he is using the term, you can say, Asiatic mode of production, but he was keeping his eyes over India, and he was much curious to know about India. He was having the personal interest in India. Particularly, he was much eager to make a study of the impact of British rule on India. So in 1853, he got some documents of East India Company in 1853. So later, going through the documents, then he compiled a new theory, that is Asiatic mode of production. So he wrote some articles in a journal, New York Tribune. And once again in 1859, he wrote some journals in the same New York Tribune. So his ideas in New York Tribune was just, ideas just crystallized into a whole theory, and this theory is known as Asiatic mode of production. So he tried to establish that the society in India, or rather Asia, is changeless. Changeless means it has continued from the time immemorial and had to continue till a colonial power has to bring certain forceful changes here. So he believes that in fact in India, or rather he believes in the east of Iran or east of Persia, here there is the tradition of a despotic ruler. So on the above there is a despotic ruler who is owning a very powerful bureaucracy and who is having the control over the means of irrigation. He also tried to establish that in Europe, normally the irrigation projects are smaller in size, but in Asia, it is the bigger in size. So in Europe, these irrigation projects were being maintained by local zamindars. But in Asia, such irrigation projects were simply maintained by the state directly. So state. So he has given the concept of a hydraulic state. And according to Karl Marx, through having the control over the means of irrigation, this despotic ruler is also having a control over the surplus production. And the surplus production is appropriated by this despotic ruler with the support of his bureaucracy. And through bureaucracy and control on the irrigation system, he appropriated the surplus, and then the remaining part was left with the peasants, and this part would only suffice to fulfill their basic needs. And there is no concept of private property in India or in Asia. The peasants are having the, you can say, collective control over the landed property. So there is the communal ownership or community ownership here, and the people are living together, they are producing, giving a larger part to the monarch, to the despotic ruler, and anyhow they are just, you can say, continuing their life on subsistence for the rest of the amount. So this was a changeless society, no private property, no urbanization, no important thing. So then you will ask the question from Karl Marx, then what do you believe? India would never undergo the phase of socialist transformation now? Because he believes in India there was neither slavery system nor feudalism. They could not manifest in India. In India, at upper level there is despotic monarchs, and at the lower level, at upper level there is despotic monarchs, and at lower level in India there is, and he believes that on upper level there is despotic rulers, while at lower level there is primary communism, self-sufficient village economy. And this situation has to continue. There is neither slavery system nor feudalism. So if someone is going to ask a question from Karl Marx, what do you believe then? Did India never undergo a phase of socialist transformation? He would reply, yes, India would, but not at its own, because Indian society is not having internal strength to change. It is changeless. So as the British forcefully introduced railways in India, although with the objective of furthering its own colonial interest, but even unconsciously they have brought the condition of industrialization in India. So India would undergo a phase of industrialization. So India would definitely undergo a phase of capitalist transformation. Then naturally the next step would be socialism. So in this way Karl Marx just tried to explain, but he tried to establish that no, Indian society was the classical example of a changeless society. So it focuses on the Oriental despotism and tries to prove that Indian society has always been changeless. However, this idea has been convincingly rejected. Idea of change. That was a changeless society. Then comes the turn of idea of change. There are two perspectives here. Perspective first. In the first view, changes were identified on the basis of rise and fall of dynasties. Two perspectives here. In the first view, changes were identified on the basis of rise and fall of dynasties and emergence and decline of empires, but this is an old view. Okay. The next one, in the new approach, changes in the socio-economic and administrative structures are treated as basis for identifying changes. My students, the second one, idea of change. One view believes that there is a society changeless, that is Karl Marx. Another view believes that no, in India there is the condition of change, and in early medieval age we can manifest change. But even those who advocated for changes, so even this group can be classified into two subgroups. One subgroup believes that no, if there is change, So it is dynastic change, because normally you can say in old historiography, the basically emphasis of historiography on political history. So if there is a change of dynasty at upper level, so that will bring the change. So that's why finding in the first view, changes were identified on the basis of rise and fall of dynasties and emergence or decline of empires, but this is an old view. Matlab, through the changes are possible due to the role of empire or decline of empire or rise of a new dynasty, decline of old dynasties. So these are the factors of changes. But second one view, but in the new approach, changes in the socio-economic and administrative structure are treated as basis for identifying changes. Ki no. Normally you can say that this view believes that so far the question of the political and dynasties are concerned and empire is concerned. So that is at the upper crust. But the basis of changes can be visible, the basis of changes are visible in socio-economic and administrative structure, socio-economic structure. So this is the second one view, and we have to go through this view. This one is the second one view. Now here you can say concept of feudalism. Of what is feudalism, I have to discuss with you people. So my friends, now we are just moving towards feudalism or the model of feudalism. You may be a bit surprised because political history starts with the dynasty of Palas and Pratiharaj. I just come to this topic of Pala, Pratiharaj and Rashtrakutaj also, and what you know as tripartite struggle or conflict. But earlier than that, I have to discuss with you one theory, the nature of a state, feudalism versus integrative state system. And it is essential for us to know about this theory because this theory is after all a very interesting theory and quite meaningful theory. So just come to the point, feudalism. The feudalism model was originally, this model developed in order to study the administrative structure of medieval Europe. Subsequently, it was also applied to the study of political administrative structure of medieval India. This theory was originally invented in context of the study of the socio-economic and administrative changes in Europe, but later this theory was applied in context of India as well. And there was an Indian scholar, you will come to know, D.D. Koshambi, who has enthusiastically applied this theory, but later it was R.S. Sharma who has written a magnum opus on Indian feudalism. The name of the book is Indian Feudalism itself, and this book was published in 1965. This book was supposed to be an encyclopedic and authoritative book on Indian feudalism. Then even D.N. Jha, V.N.S. Yadav, these scholars were also just made the contribution to this theory. So there are both economic and political aspects of feudalism. Feudalism mainly refers to those intermediaries and vassals that appropriate a significant chunk of agriculture surplus. This in turn weakens the position of both exploited cultivators as well as the undermined kings. My friends, one thing you have to understand, of this situation, I suppose you can say that this is king, okay, and this is the common people. Common people. This is the king and this is the common people. Common people. So there was a time king used through its bureaucracy, the king could have collected the revenue from the common people. But now you can say a group of intermediaries emerged between the king and the common people. So this whole system, because it means that now even the position of the king was counterbalanced and the position of the king was checked by the intermediaries, and the common people are being exploited by the intermediaries. So this condition was conceived as feudal formation. But if this is the political aspect of feudalism, so this political aspect of feudalism should have some economic aspect as well. This political aspect of feudalism should have some economic aspect as well. Because given the economic base of the state was weakened, so king was compelled to, you can say, confine its duty and to discard and to abdicate certain duties to intermediaries, because the state was lacking in the proper economic resources to pursue the all-round works which it had earlier undertaken. So such certain works were just abdicated to intermediaries. So this situation is known as the situation of feudalism. So it was a political structure, but it was having certain economic cause or basis as well. So this is the case here. Now, a historiographical debate on feudalism. Firstly, I have to discuss with you historiographical debate. Historiographical debate means that different historians have tried to explain feudalism. A long debate started whether did feudalism exist in India or not. And I think every student should know this theory, so that whenever you have to write the answer, so you may confront certain questions which require the workable knowledge of historiography as well. That's why I have to give focus over this aspect. A historiographical debate on feudalism. Here you find the example of D.D. Koshambi. So D.D. Koshambi, he was the founder of Marxist historiography. Here I am just briefing this aspect with you. You will just go through it. Actually, the early exponent of this theory was D.D. Koshambi. So D.D. Koshambi has coined the term feudalism from above and feudalism from below. Actually, he tried to establish that when the king started to give the land grants, to certain nobles and certain intermediaries. So these intermediaries were planted on the common people by the king through land grants. So this is the classical example of feudalism from above, because king has planted intermediaries on the people. Likewise, even from among the people, there was the rise of certain rich peasants who have taken the form of the rich landlords at the local level, and later he gained the power and asserted the power, and then he tried to subordinate the peasants around him. So this situation developed from 1000 CE onwards. So these situations will be characterized as the classical example of feudalism from below. So in this way, he tried to explain the two factors behind the rise of feudalism from above and feudalism from below. It was in 1965, R.A. Sharma had presented his magnum opus on Indian feudalism, that is, the name is the same or patterned on the same theory, Indian feudalism. And even before publication of this book, he organized a symposium or seminar at Calcutta, and there he presented his view. He tried to prove that, in fact, the basis of Indian feudalism was prepared by the land grants, and the land grants started during early Christian centuries, means ki post-Maurya period, and here the initiative was taken by Satvahana kings. So R.A. Sharma tried to explain the whole theory ki Satvahana kings started to, I have already discussed with you in post-Maurya period, Satvahana kings started to, you can say, distribute land grants to Brahmins and Buddhist monks. And first example of the land grant, according to R.A. Sharma, was 1st century BC, and this grant was given to a priest performing a sacrifice, then even Buddhist monks. So, but earlier grants were religious grants, and grantees were simply supposed to collect the revenue from the respective areas, and he was enjoying nothing other than the right to collect revenue. But this situation changed later up to 5th century CE during the time of Vaktakaj and Guptas. Now it is widely believed that as the king is being deprived from the revenue of the region, but still the state was bearing the burden of administration. So later even administrative rights came to be transferred to the grantees or intermediaries. So even the administrative rights came to be transferred. So obviously you can see that those intermediaries who were not earlier enjoying the administrative rights, but now they came to enjoy the administrative rights, so they obviously became more powerful. But still, the grants were simply the religious grants in nature. But you know that R.A. Sharma has already given a theory of decline of trade and decline of money economy up to the second half of Gupta period. But he came to assert that but during the last phase of Gupta period, when the Resham trade declined, when the silk trade declined between China and Roman Empire. So with the decline of the silk trade and the external trade declined and even internal trade was feudalized, so there was the decline of towns and money economy. So as there was the paucity of coins, he is given the example that after excavations at certain archaeological sites, we don't simply find the paucity of coins, but also the absence of mints. Mints means which were just producing coins. So it amply shows that as there was a scarcity of coins, so it is due to the fact that from the period of Harsha, and Harshvardhana, the period of Harsha, when land grants were provided to administrative officers as well. So this situation continued after Harsha. He has given the further ideas later, but he also emphasized the point this situation up to Harsha, period of Harsha. Then from 5th century, the most of the grants were being given to the individuals, but between the 5th century CE and 13th century CE, the maximum number of grants started to be given to the temples and monasteries. So R.S. Sharma here tried to compare Indian temples and monasteries with European church, because in Europe they were enjoying the land rights. And from 10th century onwards, a large number of grants were given to military officers who were providing military service to the state. And he has cited the example of Palaj, Pratiharaj, Rashtrakutaj and Rajput estates. So in this way, R.S. Sharma now came to realize that up to early medieval age, there was the emergence of feudalism even in political form, and the king was actually had to work along a number of intermediaries and civil and military both. So in this way, this was the feudal formation in India, according to R.S. Sharma. He has given certain examples of sub-infeudation as well. Sub-infeudation means if the king was giving land grants to a lord or to a noble, and if noble is too much powerful, he can even transfer this right to other intermediaries or to subordinates under him. So this is the case of sub-infeudation, means king is giving grants and making king was just making some noble as his feudatory, and this noble had selected another feudatory under him. So this is the classical example of sub-infeudation, and R.S. Sharma has cited the example of Indore inscription of 397. He has also tried to reflect some sort of serfdom, what you know as Kirsi Dasta, through an inscription that is Samudra Sen and Samudra Sen from the region of Jammu. So this is the basic theory of R.S. Sharma about this feudalism. It is due to the phenomena of land grants, feudalism emerged in India. But my friends, a number of critics are there who have criticized and made attack on R.S. Sharma, and they have given the counter view. R.S. Sharma once again given the reply. So this whole debate is going on, and then what was the nature of feudalism in India, and how was Indian feudalism different from European feudalism, and what is integrative state system, how did integrative state system, the theory of integrative state system propounded by B.D. Chattopadhyay and Harman Kulke countered the view of feudalism. So I will discuss all these aspects in the next one class. So thank you very much for today, my friends, and try to understand it.